I will at this point zoom out to note two important things. Firstly, this was now 1999. That's 9 years since Terry's collapse, since all of this began. And this case has so much further to go. Secondly, and I keep saying it, but all of these court battles back and forth between Michael and the parents and the treatment and the guardian illeatum, all of this is domestic and family based. Still, no one really knows Terri Schiavo's story, and now that's about to change, and this is why. Ethics, religion, medicine, husband, wives, a jury, lawyers, politicians, 19 judges, 30 trials, protesters, haters, supporters, news anchors, and the Pope. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Being Roman Catholic, the Schindlers begin to ask their community of churchgoers to help. They ask for prayers for Terri. They ask that Terri is included in the weekly services and that the love of God is bestowed upon her. And it's around this time that the church groups become increasingly interested in Terri's story. What they're really most interested in is Terri's right to live. As these groups and individuals see it, Terri should be allowed to live and not have her fate determined by her husband. So very slowly, but very, very visibly, they start to raise a campaign called Let Terri Live. And it starts at first in small numbers, and at first it's like a few people standing outside of Terri's hospital. They ask people to sign petitions to allow Terri to live. So when they're stopping people and they're asking them to sign their name to these petitions, they're saying, oh, this is the story. Her husband is trying to take his wife's life away, and her family want the opposite, so we are her, supporters, we're her helpers. Sign this petition and save Terri. Now these church groups, they can do what they want. They can, they can raise enough signatures and go to court if they want, but they can't stop Michael from removing her feeding tube. And so it starts as one of those, quite small things, but very quickly it starts to get media attention. And this is what I've been wanging on about so far. And I'm sorry to keep saying the same point. Nobody knew the Terri Schiavo story. It was just between the family. And now the media are like, oh, hang on. There's some protesters outside of a hospital. Let's do a story. So the groups of people, the church goers, the numbers, they grow rapidly. Suddenly, hundreds of people are outside of the hospital with signs which say things like, let Terri live, and quotes from the Bible, thou shalt not kill. T-shirts are being made with photographs of Terri Schiavo on them saying, it's her life, Michael, not yours. Now, for the Schindlers, they feel like they've got support on their side. They're finally being heard. The people are behind them. Michael, he takes to court once more to ask for these protests to stop. He says, look, I'm still trying to care for my wife, but it's becoming really difficult to get into the hospital because I'm being shouted at, I'm being harassed, and these protesters are just growing in numbers. And the judge says, yeah, okay, that's actually not fair. And so for a short while, the protesters are removed. But removing them is actually only a very, very small part of what needs to be done here. Michael is now known in the papers and on TV as the husband of Terri Schiavo. And the media portray the story in really one way only. And it's why I fucking hate the media. I fucking hate the media. I mean, obviously this podcast wouldn't exist without the media. I wouldn't be able to find information, but there is a side of the media I fucking hate. They see a story. They see a two-sided story. And this is how it gets shown around the world. Woman is in a vegetative state. Husband wants to pull the plug. Parents want her alive. He is a monster. And so, Michael becomes vilified so badly by the press and the public. In an interview, right, that I read when I was doing my research with people who were around during the time of the story, they will unanimously say, oh yeah, the Terri Schiavo story, yeah, he was the husband that wanted to kill his wife and the parents were trying to save her. He was such a bastard. Now, it's so interesting because those people years later will go, oh, actually, I don't think I had all the facts. I actually don't think I had all of the information when I made that decision. And it's not the fault of anybody to not have all the information. It's just that that's what the media was telling you the situation was. So the frenzy around it is growing and growing. Terri Schiavo's name is in the news weekly at this point. National news level now. And now reporters are camped outside of her hospital regularly. Two absolutely major things happen in a very short space of time. The Guardian ad litem Richard Spence puts forth his findings as the personal investigator of the story, and he says the following. After speaking to doctors, I now understand fully that Terri Schiavo will remain in this vegetative state for the rest of her life, and that her chances of improvement are zero. However, I believe the choice to remove her feeding tube is a selfish choice by Michael Schiavo, who is the only person set to gain anything from her death. His choice to remove her tube is based solely on the pursuit of money. So these are the supposed impartial findings of Richard Spence. And of course, as there's now media interest, all that this does is vilify Michael even further. I mean, the headlines are now things like, Michael wants her dead for the cash. The second major thing that happens here is that the doctors, hello, hi there, remember the language, English, can you speak that? Yeah, good. The second major thing is that the Schindlers appoint a doctor to do tests on Terri for brain function. I mean, we are years into this now. How many more tests can you do? But they employ a specialist to take on Terri's case. Before we just get on to what that involves, I will say there's now been 16 different court cases, and there have been so many doctors who've spoken and they've all said the same thing. Terri's brain is not responsive. Yes, she has motor functions that make her face move, but her brain is not alive. If we jump back, remember the judge who said, "Oh, you need more evidence"? Well, that judge gives them all a tap on the shoulder and says, look, before we can go any further with this, we need more medical evidence if we are going to decide an outcome. The reason he does that is because the courts are now under scrutiny. See, because the whole story's become so public and so visible, now everyone and anyone who's ever been involved in the Terri Schiavo case is now under scrutiny. So like I said, the Schindlers, they have got themselves a doctor to look at Terri. And now what we get to become the most famous images of Terri. And I'm so sure that lots of you will have seen these images. They are the smoking gun in this story. Both Michael and the Schindlers, they've enlisted their own doctors to examine Terri. You know, they both just want a doctor who can stand by them in court and validate their reasons to either remove her feeding tube or not remove the tube. So let's start with Michael's doctor. Well, what he does is he examines Terri. He looks at the history. He goes, it's been years now she's been in this state. Now, he is an absolute expert in his field. He's published medical papers on these kind of states before, and he says this: Terri will never recover from this state. She will remain here forever. Her brain function will never improve. The doctors brought in by the Schindlers examine Terri and have a different opinion. He says, I think I can try some new techniques to get her brain working again. All I need to do is open up her blood vessels in her brain and her brain function will return. Now, I'm not doubting doctors. I'm not a doctor. But, I mean, this just sounds like crackpot fucking medicine to me. But, okay, fine. The Schindlers, they believe in this man. Sounds dodgy as fuck to me, but okay. So with these two doctors' reports on it, one saying nothing is going to change, and the other saying all we need to do is open up some vessels in her brain and it'll be fine, they go back to the courts. Honestly, by this point, they should have just been living in these courtrooms. They should have had a fucking bedroom in these courts, the amount of times that they are in and out of court. So the judge hears from both doctors, and he says to the doctor that the Schindlers have got, okay, right, so you're telling me you can get her brain working again. What is the evidence that this works? And it all starts to kind of fall apart a bit here for the doctor in court. He's like, well, it's been done on so-and-so who suffered a car accident, and, you know, now she's absolutely fine because I opened the blood vessels in her brain. And the judge, who I love, by the way, in this situation because he's just not taking any shit, judge says, okay, was that person in a vegetative state? And the doctor says, no, she wasn't. So the judge starts to get impatient and says, look, can you prove to me that this supposed procedure on the brain works? Where is your evidence? You're giving me just loads of shit examples. What can you actually say to me can you prove to me in this courtroom right now that this will work on Terri Schiavo's brain? And the doctor says, well, Sally down the road, her leg was broken, and I healed it with blood supply to her brain. And the judge just gets really impatient and says, get out my fucking courtroom. Basically, you're talking shit. You're talking absolute nonsense. The judge rules that Michael's doctor is actually speaking the truth and Terri's brain will not improve. So in this case, essentially Michael has won and the feeding tube is to be removed. Remember that by now the world's media is watching this, and that is so important in what happens next. I called it earlier the smoking gun, and it's this. The Schiavo family invite the doctor who just bombed in court into Terri's hospital room, and this doctor brings with him a camera crew. Now, Michael is very uneasy with this. He's very uneasy because he says, look, this is a complete invasion of privacy for Terri. I don't like this at all. He says, I know how Terri felt about life, and the last thing she would have wanted was to be filmed by a camera crew this close up. But the Schindlers, they say, look, Michael, this doctor has ways that he can do things to her brain. He can prove that Terri's brain will work again. Michael says, no, I don't want a camera crew in this room. What do the Schindlers do? I'll literally give you £1,000 if you can guess the right answer. They go to court. Once fucking more, they go to court for about, I'm going to say, the 798th time. They go to court and they say, we should be allowed to bring a camera crew into the room where Terri is. And Michael, he stops it dead. He goes, fine. I cannot go back to court again over this. Fine, let the fucking cameras in. Let them in. Now, I would like you to, in fact, I urge you to, stop listening to me right now and go to YouTube or the Google or wherever you search and look for Terri Schiavo videos. What you will see is this. You will see Terri lying in her hospital bed with her mum kissing her and Terri looking as if she is smiling at receiving the kiss. You will see Terri's eyes move towards some balloons in the room. You will see Terri being swabbed by a doctor in her mouth and her reaction to it. What you'll see if you watch these videos is essentially Terri Schiavo looking as if she is responding to everything around her. So, have we been wrong this whole entire time? Is Terri's brain responding? These videos would certainly make you believe so. Now, these clips are each a few seconds long. 4-5 seconds at a time. I think it totals about 2 minutes. Now, we're talking 2 minutes of footage which, if you look at it, look to you as if Terri Schiavo has a brain which is responding to everything around her. Michael, although he didn't want the cameras in the room, he's present the entire time that they are there. To get these 2 minutes of footage, it took 5 hours of filming Terri. At one point, a doctor on the other side of the room is saying Terry's name, and she moves her head towards the doctor and she looks at him. Michael will say, this was after 40 minutes of the doctor standing in the corner going, Terri, 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 Terri. 40 minutes of that. 40 minutes of that doctor saying her name. And in that one moment where her head turns, that becomes a 2-second clip. And it's edited to make it look as if she's responding. The kiss from her mum, where she appears to smile, Michael says that kiss from her mother happened at least 100 times before they got the shot where Terry's mouth moved and it became interpreted as a smile. In the clip, her eyes look as if they're following a balloon around the room. But Michael says after 5 hours of filming, her eyes were darting around so much that the camera just happened to catch her eyes moving at the same time as the balloon. But the family, they take these tiny little clips and they send them out to the worldwide media. And it becomes Terri is responding. Terri is alive. Terry's brain is working. And the truth of it is, these responses, I've said it before, these responses, she would have been doing these things if no one was in the room or 100 people were in the room. It didn't make a difference. It's just the way that it's been caught on camera and edited. Now, of course, once these clips hit the news, it only secures Michael's position as the villain husband. The Schindlers are now saying, well, this is why we want Terri alive. She's responding. Michael continues to fight the case. No, it was 5 hours of filming and Terri was doing what she fucking does every single day. Her face was moving, her mouth was responding, yes, but these are the things she does all the times. They weren't in response to this. Michael is on track to become the most hated man in the world. There are now thousands of protesters outside of Terry's hospital with placards saying, Michael, you're a killer. Let Terry live. Michael, you should be the one to die. A huge piece of stone with the 10 Commandments written on it is brought to the hospital grounds with "Thou shalt not kill, Michael" etched into it. Michael starts to receive phone calls from strange numbers telling him that he's going to die. Michael's lawyer receives a note in the post saying, "You will die for helping Michael Schiavo." A bomb is found in Michael's garden. And as if the Terri Schiavo story, which is now worldwide news, couldn't get any more attention, it's about to. The government are about to step in and take this story up to the next and most unbelievable level. And so ends part 3.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.